Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. By request, I'm going to try out a Regal Caracal and Brimaz Soul Sisters build. It was kind of a challenge by some of my fans watching my stream, my YouTube stream, where I was playing my go-to deck Soul Sisters, as you've seen on this channel probably a dozen times at this point. And I thought I'd be up for the challenge to try the whole Cat Sisters, or Soul Cats is what I'm going to call this, as Soul Sisters is okay right now in the modern meta, as it does really well against Dredge and Death Shadow. I think over the past few weeks playing Soul Sisters, I've only dropped one match to the Death Shadow and have yet to lose to Dredge. I think it's worth the thought experience of trying to see if Regal Caracal is worthwhile. So without further ado, here is my deck list that we're going to be trying. We're going to be running 24 lands because of the 5 mana that Regal Caracal costs, as well as Archangel of Thune. I think that we want to run the Archangel of Thune in this build, even though it does compete with the space, as we want to more like stabilize with our life gain, not really try to go as aggressive as possible. Those draws are still definitely something that can happen, but try to stabilize and then drop a massive bomb, 5-drop like the Archangel of Thune or the Regal Caracal. Instead of Spectral Possession, since we're going a cat, we are going to run White Sun Zenith, and I'm going to cut some Honor the Pures, as the Archangel of Thune and Regal Caracals are still going to act as our anthem for the White Sun Zenith and the Brimaz tokens, as well as the Ajani's Pridemate. And the regular Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant go crazy with Archangel of Thune. So we're going to run 4 Sacred Cats at our 1-drop, instead of, a lot of times this is like a Martyr of the Sands, or maybe I put more Soul Sisters in the form of Auriok Champions in the main. But we're going to run Sacred Cats. This is the whole reason that this deck got started. I was testing this card out with Soul Sisters, and it's actually pretty good. I don't know if I like it over Squadron Hawk or Martyr, but it is definitely a decent card against the attrition and control-based decks, as you'd be surprised at just getting out a 1/1 cat that often is a 2/2 with Honor the Pure. Can it be something formidable in Modern? Modern is all about just establishing a threat. It doesn't even matter what that threat is. Eventually you can grind your opponent out with even the smallest of threats. So it's a lot different than what works in Standard, where you have to keep going bigger, whereas what works in Modern is just to progress and get a threat out and play that attrition battle. So Sacred Cat actually does that quite well. We're still going to run the Serra Ascendant, as it does have a lot of synergy with both the Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant, and it also does with the Sacred Cat, as you can get above the 30 life quite easily, even if you're not running Martyr, and then the Serra Ascendant becomes a 6/6 lifelinker. It's probably not nearly as good without running Rangers, and it might end up need to be cut for something else. Maybe another Honor the Pure goes here, or maybe even Ranger. I don't know. Without Ranger, maybe the Serra Ascendant is not the right card to put in the deck. In fact, let's just cut down to 2 of and add the Honor the Pures back in, and that gives us a more bang for our buck here. So on the fly, we're going to, sometimes just talking it out, explaining the deck list actually makes me rethink particular cards. So now I'm going to run the full package on the Pure. I think there is a good synergy with White Sun Zenith. It does pump up our Soul Sisters. It also gives us the Ajani's Pridemate. And yeah, I don't even know if Serra Ascendant actually wants to be in here. This is something where we could go with Auriok Champion instead. We'll just keep it as is, though, and see if there's a lot of matchups that Auriok Champion comes in against. I would definitely bring it in versus Dredge and Burn and Death Shadow, and even Jund. Auriok Champion is so good. And so yeah, let's just go ahead. I think I'm gonna throw the 2 Auriok Champions in. We're gonna cut the Serra Ascendant completely. So anyway, now for our sideboard, I am going to play 4 Path to Exiles, a Mark of Asylum. Mark of Asylum turns all of our characters into like an Auriok Champion type card. 2 Rest in Peace, a Stony Silence. We're going to put 2 more Auriok Champions in the sideboard, and then we're going to run 2 Leyline of Sanctities and 2 Sundering Growths. And we have 1 more flex spot. I'm just going to go ahead and chuck in another Mark of Asylum, I think, in the sideboard, and call it good, and see how well this deck can stack up against the field. So we're going to go really heavy on the Soul Sisters now, having a lot of of synergy with the Ajani's Pridemate as well as the Archangel of Thune, and hopefully we can win some matchups here. Again, this is not tested. We're editing on the fly even, so I'm not quite sure how well this is going to do in this particular modern meta. But again, this is what thought experiments are all about. You never get better as a player unless you take some risks and take some just take it on a test drive. And then from there, that's when you start cutting out the cards that don't quite work. So this whole thing is going to be testing the Regal Caracal as well as the White Sun Zenith and seeing if a higher converted mana cost Soul Sisters type deck is viable. So the games will be the timestamps of the games will be in the link in the description below as well as in the comment section. And you can follow along with the 4 games we will play in Modern. So let's just get to the games. Alrighty, so game number 1, we get the die roll. So yes, we'd like to play first. And I think this is an acceptable hand. We have 2 mana, Ajani's Pridemate, as well as the Auriok Champion, a White Sun Zenith, and 2 Honor the Pures. So it is quite weak as far as not really establishing too many threats. Like if this, the Pridemate and the Champion are taken care of. But we do have the White Sun Zenith for later on. And we are missing some pivotal lands to hit our 5 drops. So hopefully this works out for us. We'll start off with the Flagstone. Usually what you want to see with Soul Sisters is these two, a Soul Sister and a Ajani Pridemate, preferably a 1-drop Soul Sisters. Our Champion's great against particular matchups. It's just such a trump card in Modern. Did not want to see another creature-based deck, especially if it's one that can infinitely combo. We just don't have a lot of ways to push through before the combo goes off. So any Court of Calling or Collected Company deck, I'm assuming is going to be a tough matchup. But if we are going against like the human-based strategy or some of these other value creature-based decks, that okay, so we'll have a great matchup versus this deck. Because I don't believe there are any infinites in this human deck. I could be wrong, and they are going to hate seeing the Auriok Champion. We'll just spend our mana more wisely and put out the Auriok Champion. And this is a nightmare as a creature-based deck to see a Soul Sister come down. The most ideal scenario next turn is to draw a land, and we can go Soul Warden and Ajani's Pridemate. And that way, we'll have a 4/4 online. And then the next turn, we can throw out an Honor the Pure. Hopefully, we have another land drop after that and go double Honor the Pure. And then we have a huge White Sun Zenith that we can put in any additional land into. So I don't know how well the White Sun Zeniths are going to work in this deck either. It seems to be a weaker Secure the Wastes, 2 more mana to basically get a little bit stronger of a token, actually quite a bit, double size of the token, which is good, but the mana is might just be a little too hefty for the deck. So we'll gain a life, the Champion will get a counter. The Champion does start to get out of control, but it should start being outclassed by our Pridemate because we'll get 2 counters per 1 counter the Champion does, because every creature that my opponent puts out is going to pump up the Pridemate. So land here would be ideal. It is a Ghost Quarter, which does work. So we will go ahead and throw out the Soul Warden. And then also go ahead and throw out the Pridemate. And opponent did miss the land drop, so just working off of a Noble Hierarch, so we can actually attack in. And go ahead and yield to this trigger. Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough for the Champion to keep up with the Pridemate. In fact, it'll probably get Path though exiled, but at this point, a Path is fine. We'll take the Path, as it gives us another White Sun Zenith. And my opponent's actually at a 16, taking the Fetch Shock. So we are definitely winning the damage race. And again, this is a very, very tough match for my opponent, as Soul Sisters just traditionally is beat up. Basically, the only creature-based deck that Soul Sisters sometimes is weak against is going to be Merfolk. It's the one creature-based deck that can go over top. Eldrazi Tron too, but Eldrazi Tron you kind of put in more of the ramp or the combo-based theme than consider a creature. And there's the Path to Exile, so we saw that coming. which is perfectly fine. The champion's just going to get it for 5. But we have the 2 pieces that are actually more vital to our survival than the Pridemate. And still missed a land drop by my opponent, so we're just going to throw out 2 onto the pier as well. Well, we'll just get another one. How about that? So we'll throw out another Pridemate. And this is exactly why I don't run Path to Exile's main anymore in the modern meta, is there's a lot of matchups where they're just unnecessary, and this would be one of them. Your objective is to stabilize, not to take... Like, even against Death Shadow, a lot of times your creatures become bigger. It might be vital, as we don't have Serra Ascendant, which is a card that traditionally is your other finisher, but I don't know how strong it would be in this deck, especially without the Rangers, the reason why I cut it. I can't justify. Yeah, I don't know if White Sun Zenith also is going to be viable. But wanted to see, with 24 lands, we should be hitting land drops quite consistently. And it's a great place to put any excess mana. But if you compare it to a Ranger, for example, White Sun Zenith is actually only a 2/2 cat, where instead of a 3/2 as well as 2 1-drops. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if White Sun Zenith actually. So Reflector Mage is fine. It gets back the Pridemate. And stops it for a turn. So next turn I would like to hit a land drop. We're taking 6 here. But we can actually swing in. It depends on what I draw. We could actually swing in for 6 damage. Putting my opponent will probably block with the Reflector Mage at that point. Oh, even... Well, we're drawing a lot of duplicates. So go onto the pier, and swing in. And now I think my opponent has to block. Okay, I guess not. Might be a Lightning Helix in hand. Sometimes they run like 3-2 Lightning Helixes. This isn't a Bant human, so this is going to be a 4 or 5 color humans. Yeah, they go. The 4 color I saw wasn't running red. It ran the 3 mana exile a spell, Sin Collector. So Reflector made Sin Collector, but still in good shape. All the piers are quite awkward. There's a Mayor, which is pretty effective at pumping up the Hierarchs and pumping up the Champion. Does give me 2 life, so I negated the damage that did for the Champion. We also get to put out a Pridemate, and there's a Thalazu Tenant. I wonder if my opponent will swing in, though. I could actually lose this one, and this is where Path to Exile would be good on the Champion. But he kept a very greedy hand, did get that other land. And did not attack in, so... That would be a good card for when we... in fact, yeah, a land. If we hit a land, it's pretty much over with the Archangel. Another Path to Exile gets us the mana. Gives us 2 counters. And then any other subsequent creature. My opponent's still strong, though. I mean, a Chord of Calling could happen here for another Reflector Mage. Collected Company could find 2 Reflector Mages, for example. Eternal Witness gets back the Path to Exile. But my opponent's not going to be too happy with the card that we get off of, or the land. And then any other subsequent land after this, the White Sun Zenith is going to start getting another token, which ends up being a 5/5 token. So we're still in great shape here. Reflector Mage and Champion could attack in. Decided not to run the path out, I guess. Well, let's force off the path. See what our opponent can do. Now the Archangel of Thune is going to give 3 counters. But my 26 life total is actually not the most comforting. Looks like a Collected Company. A Thalia's Lieutenant and a Noble Hierarch. So this does give us a lot of life. Yeah, crazy. I could definitely still lose this. I disagree. I think at this point you're attacking... Well, no, well, maybe the blockers need to be 15-15 Champion. Another Honor the Pure. Well, let's go ahead and throw out the Archangel. Which now all my creatures are huge. Still really can't attack in either, though. And I could still honestly lose this with another Path to Exile. Or another like Collected Company type card. Even a Reflector Mage is pretty rough. My opponent definitely has the mana. I need a land next turn for the White Sun Zenith. Just to give me some blockers. I mean, the Archangel attacks next turn just wins. And there's the concession, which is crazy because I still don't even feel like that good of position. There's the Plains, which allows for 3 cats, which would have, yeah, that would have been pretty insane. All right, so sideboard. Auriok Champions are actually fine in this. I still don't think I need any sort of Path to Exile or Sundering Growth type card or Leyline. So Auriok can come in possibly for, I actually think the White Sun Zenith might be too slow for this particular match, as we're not playing like a big attrition war and then late game establishing a threat. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut 2 of them, and we'll go ahead and submit this. Alright, so this is a very good hand. It's going to require a Path to Exile, otherwise we're going to go over the top of our opponent. And then from then on out, it's going to get us the Archangel of Thune very, very quickly. I'm actually wondering if bringing back in Ranger instead of Honor is the right call. I'm just all over the place. When I keep looking at the deck list, I just want to go back to normal Soul Sisters, but the cats are kind of cool, for sure. Alright, so my opponent's going to have a more explosive draw, but then less cards to work with. And we did hit a land there, so it's going to allow for a pretty good turn 3 with a Soul Attendant and an Honor. Because we are going to run out the Ajani's Pridemate. Yeah, this seems like a miserable card for my opponent to have to deal with. Mantis Rider. An acceptable threat, but I mean, this deck is just slower than I would say like Burn or other aggressive decks. So it's going to give me time to stabilize. There's a Brimaz. That might be... Now we need to get this established as quickly as possible. So I'm not even too concerned with the Path to Exile, as the Path to Exile ramps me toward a Soul's Attendant and a Brimaz. And then we're one away from the Archangel of Thune, which... So see if there's a Reflector Mage. It is indeed a Reflector Mage, so... What is the right play? We could go Soul Attendant and an Honor. I think getting just Brimaz out here is the right play. Would definitely want to hit some lands here. Our life total is a slight issue. We can go Soul Attendant and Ajani's Pridemate and attack him with Brimaz, though, to gain life. That's rough. We still have the play next turn, though, so... And it is a tap land with the Windbrisk Heights, so that's good. And we'll definitely put a... At this point, I think I might just want an Auriok Champion underneath. But Pridemate is probably the right call. Unless there's another Reflector Mage. The Pridemate's going to give us some really good padding for these Reflector Mage. And we're still up to 15 life, which is phenomenal. Archangel of Thune will just win the game again, especially with 2 Reflector Mages already taken care of. So taking 4 going down to an 11. And probably holding up a Collected Company. So that actually was a pretty good draw. As we get another Soul Warden. I was surprised I didn't see a Coco there. we'll throw out Brimaz. Which puts us back up to a 16. And we can definitely attack him with the Pridemate. See if the Collected Company comes down here. Collected Company is kind of awkward, though, because it will give Ajani's Pridemate 3 counters on it. So the best thing my opponent can hope for is another Reflector Mage. And then it's just... rinse and repeat after that. And I get 6 life, so my opponent's not going to be attacking in for too much. Staticaster is brutal. So Reflector Mage is going to hit. But Staticaster kills off all of my guys. I don't have the Honor the Pure to protect. So, yep, kill off both the Attendants. And that is very, very tough. See who can dish off the most damage first. The thing is, my opponent does have really good card advantage over my Honor the Pures. And it appears another Coco in hand. I'm going to kill off that before anything can come down. Sure. And there's a champion. As well as another champion, so... And another champion! So I don't even know if I can attack in to this with the Brimaz. I don't need another Pridemate out. Other than we do have the Honor the Pure times 3 now, so we can go Honor. And that would have been nice, of course, versus the Staticaster. I think it's worthwhile attacking with the Pridemate. I can lose Mantis Rider and puts out a 3/3. Yeah, I think this is worthwhile. Because probably in a block is what I'd assume. But we could get rid of this champion. Or just get rid of the... Okay, that's fine. And we have 2 vigilant creatures back. Staticaster definitely was brutal. Just the Mantis Rider. Thinking another Coco is probably in hand. Tireless Tracker. It's a pretty good draw with the champion. As well as the honor. I'm pretty sure this champion will bite the dust. We'll attack him with everything. Puts out another cat, which gains us a life. Yeah, I think that's a good move. Sacrificing the Staticaster. Could take care of some cat soldiers by blocking and shooting, blocking and shooting. Gonna double block on the Brimaz, huh? That's fine too, because I think one of the win cons is gonna be this champion getting out of control. Taking 8 here too. And it already did its job. Yeah, I got rid of the bigger one, so now my opponent can only cast a Collected Company is the only thing that my opponent can really rely on here to get above the cat soldiers. So Brimaz is definitely an all-star. I'm actually thinking it might be time to revisit Brimaz in regular Soul Sisters. As the card, there are a couple slots that I still haven't quite solidified in Soul Sisters. And Brimaz I'm playing Secure the Waste at the moment. And Brimaz might actually just be... Alright, so Mantis Rider times 2. We can rely on Ajani's Pridemate coming out no matter what. My opponent has to block with everything. So land here just wins it, so we'll just win it with... It doesn't win it, but it gives me a huge blocker as well. So I'm sure the Hierarch is going to be sacrificed, and then a double block on the Auriok Champion, but it'd have to be a double block as far as the champion in the Tireless Tracker, because the Mantis Rider can't do damage, or can't even block it. And then both Mantis Riders would have to die. Yeah, this is just a pretty bad. I don't know why you don't double block there. To kill off a cat soldier. But yeah, there's literally nothing my opponent can draw here to win the game. And there is the concession. We'll go on to game number 2. Alrighty, game number 2. Yes, we like to play first again. Not a bad start. We have all the cats this time around, so we will most likely go with a Sacred Cat. Yeah, that's the right play. Just put out a Sacred Cat and call it good. Again, it's kind of crazy how this card is so bad in, well, it's so decent in Standard, but in Modern it's actually quite good. It does the job of blocking twice against like Death Shadow and against burn decks. And also synergizes quite well with the other cards that want to gain life in this deck. Cutting the Sarah's in it though, that's... it's really just a Pridemate. So we need another green-white deck, depends on what the flavor of this green-white deck is. We'll go in Windbrisk Heights and put a Regal Caracal, put the rest on any order, and go ahead and throw out a Soul Attendant. I always like to lead with Soul Sisters over like a cat, and the cat will attack in. Just more reliable life gain with the Soul Attendant. And we have Brimaz coming down. Alrighty. So usually these green-white decks are going to be tough if they have any sort of combo. I didn't put any ways to shut down combos at all. If it is just value-based decks, though, that we're seeing more and more like that humans, though, we're in great shape. And it is a Moran Crusader, which is going to be really bad against our deck. So Giant's Pridemate is actually very interesting here over Brimaz. Yeah, I actually do like that play. Brimaz is something that gets out of control, but I can't attack in a Crusader. Whereas the Pridemate is just huge. So crazy that these kind of aggro creature-based decks. Well, I guess it's only 2 games. I played only a couple days ago, and it was all Dredge and Death Shadow. Death Shadow, Dredge, and Eldrazi Tron were the big matchups that I was facing. A couple U-White control variants, but so much Death Shadow. And hadn't seen a other white card in a long time. So here, I think we'll just throw a cat in front of the way. I think my opponent wanted to offer the trade with the Pridemate, but the cat is something I can just cast again. Most likely we will just attack in with 3 creatures and put out their Regal Caracal. Maybe that was the wrong play. As if my opponent puts out another one, maybe I don't want to attack in with the like a Soul Attendant. Ugh, okay. Yeah, and I could have just got away with just attacking with... Huh. So that I lose my Soul Attendant and get a bunch of cats. Or I just put out Brimaz and wait a turn. Yeah, that block now, I'm kind of regretting the block. So I actually think I just attacking with everything. You use the Windbrisk Heights when you can. Yeah, I don't think I need to get this much bigger than a 9/9. It's going to be a 10/10 actually. 11/11 with the lifelink. I'm up to 39 life. So Path to Exile does change things. Yeah, that was definitely a mistake blocking with the Sacred Cat. My opponent is not going to attack in with anything. We get another Plains, which I think this is better than a Brimaz. Just chucking out some Honor the Pures. And we'll do another one. And now they can't even double block here, so we're just going to swing in with everything. The Pridemate will get Birds of Paradise. There could be a Coco coming down here. Which makes things a little bit more difficult. But just an Ooze and a Voice. No, neither of those are threatening at all. So, I mean, I could see like Crusaders double blocking. Really? Gonna trade with my cats. I get it. Yeah, I guess that's the only way that my opponent lives. So even that Coco ends up not being very good. And the good old Pridemate goes up to a 17-17, and I'm up to 64 life. Maybe Sarah's Ascendant should have stayed in this deck. But we'll do the same. That actually changes things too if we go Soul Attendant. I don't think we needed to do that main. We're going to go ahead and just main phase the Brimaz just to get the Ajani's Pridemate a little bit bigger. Coco number 2. My opponent had a very good hand, too, with the Cocos. And those were terrible hits. Very, very terrible. So this is just Hate Bears. And Hate Bears is probably the easiest matchup in all of Soul Sisters, I would say. Either that or Death and Taxes, but I've actually run into some times where Death and Taxes has shut me down early. Whereas, especially with Eldrazi and Taxes, I think that's a matchup that I've lost with Soul Sisters. But Hate Bears is nearly impossible to lose. They have to hit like everything perfect. So alrighty. And I don't know if there's any sort of Wrath of God. Trying to figure out if I recognize this name or not. I think this is Craig Wesco, isn't it? Not Nicodles for Life. No, he's Nicodles something. And he always plays a white variant. So I'm being more Wesco than Wesco is with my white deck. Okay, so I don't need Path to Exiles. They're kind of fun versus the third run Auriok Champion. Don't need any of this stuff. We're going to take out White Sun Zenith again for Auriok Champion, just because the more Soul Sisters, the merrier with the Pridemate. We are very Pridemate dependent with this deck, or Archangel of Thune. So possibly you should go up to a full, like the full 4 count of Archangel of Thune. And the Regal Caracal back, but I don't know. I do like running against these decks, though, that aren't running combo or attrition. It's very easy just to establish these big threats. Again, this is just a mess for my opponent. They're going to have a very, very tough time siding in any cards. I don't think Wrath of Gods are in Death and Taxes. I don't think... just Path to Exile will come in, and even like Dramoka's Command I think is quite weak, even if I get 2 for 1. This deck isn't the best at coming back from 2 for 1s as the no Ranger, that sort of stuff, but Regal Caracal is a 3 for 1. And the Windbrisk Heights are actually pretty decent too. So, and speaking of cats, we will keep the cat draw. See if my opponent leads off with a bird. There is the bird. And we'll put out a cat. One more land for the Regal Caracal. But it'd be kind of fun to throw an Anointed Procession in the mix with the White Sun Zenith. At that point, though, we're just begging for attrition to beat us up. Loxodon Smiter. Sure. Here I would say, yeah, it's going to be the Auriok Champion. Smiter's going to get in for some decent damage. I don't know if I need to make this block. I don't think I do. Not in any real danger here. The voice can get out of control, but not nearly as bad as I can get out of control. See if a Birds of Paradise puts another voice out. Yep. And there's another Windbrisk Heights, so not necessarily what I wanted to see. We'll put another Caracal underneath it. And I think, I don't know, do I block? Yeah, this is where it does get scary. My opponent does have a very... this deck actually might be pretty decent in the Death Shadow meta. But here's where I definitely want the old school. Soul Sisters. I could get beat down. I have to make this block. I can't hemorrhage anymore. I wish I would have done it last turn, as the we'd have another Sacred Cat back, and then because I'm going to be probably just running out of White Sun Zenith just to hold on. Yeah, I think I will block with the Sacred Cat. I guess I could just recast it next turn. But this is getting scary. I would love to hit like another Soul Sister type ability next turn. An Arbiter doesn't do anything. There's no Ghost Quarter out at the moment. Another Windbrisk Heights. That's the worst one to hit. Well, we have some juicy stuff underneath the Heights if we can ever get it. Yeah, okay. So Path to Exile is rough with a Leonin Arbiter or a Ghost Quarter. Unfortunately, I think I still need to block a Smiter. Eternal Witness is just going to get back a land. Another White Sun Zenith, which will be good later on. This gives us a lot of life. It most likely will get Path, and I won't be able to do anything with it, because I had two lands open. That's what I'm assuming the other two cards are in hand. No, okay. So we're in actually pretty good shape. And look at this underneath the Heights. That is phenomenal for Our creatures get huge. So no blocks here. We're not going to block anything. I could see my opponent just like passing rather than attacking in. I know the Voice of Resurgence wants to die, as it brings back a huge token. We're in surprisingly pretty good shape. But next turn we have, if we can attack in with 3 creatures, we have a Archangel of Thune, which triggers the Auriok Champion and the Regal Caracal. So that will put in everything will get +4/+4. So the Auriok Champion itself will probably kill something. Depending on how my opponent attacks in. Oh, this deck is hilarious. We're getting very lucky matching up against these green-white creature-based decks. Still assuming that these type of decks like Loxodon and Smiter and Voice of Resurgence are really good against Jund and Abzan with the Lilianas. These are Liliana killers right here. As the Smiter, it's also, the Loxodon and Smiter is great versus the Kolgan's Command type, where you get to choose a card to discard, as you just get a free 4/4 into play. Smack, we take 8. My opponent needs 2 paths. Well, Ghost Quarter is definitely annoying. Got the right one, too. Well, if nothing else, we get to attack in and get a Regal Caracal. And we just get a hard cast. At this point, I think Soul Warden's better than a Pridemate. It's a lot of lifelink here, too. Doesn't have lifelink itself, but it will when we put out this other. Gotta assume the other card in my opponent's hand is a Coco. Eternal Witness at this point is very expendable. So I'm assuming the Eternal Witness is just going to throw in front of the Caracal. Random Howled Moonlight in my opponent's hand, maybe? Nope. And look at the life gain we're going to gain here. Boom. We are back up to our starting life total. Oh, this deck is just too much fun. So, what in the world could be in my opponent's hand that there was nothing, no Collected Company, 3 mana open. I'm just thinking that's the Flood. It hasn't missed a land drop because the Horizon Canopy came off of, was sacked twice, and then came off of the Eternal Witness, and then the Ghost Quarter, so it's got to be lands in hand. A random Dusk. That card's actually really, really good. We get to keep our most pivotal piece, though. And return all creatures with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So we'll get back an Eternal Witness. So the only thing I take is 6 here, though. And so the damage was done. So that was the card in hand. And a Temple Garden into play tapped. Well, we're going to throw out an Archangel of Thune. My opponent is down to a 6, and we have an instant speed White Sun Zenith that can really... Yeah, the Dusk Dawn is interesting choice. Kills Death Shadow Tarmogoyf. Doesn't kill like Dark Confidant. I don't even know if I'd run it in Soul Sister sideboard, to be honest. I don't think it's what you want to be doing. You know, it's probably just better than a Wrath of God, though. As the Aftermath is something that, I mean, you have to exile, though, when you cast Aftermath, so it doesn't, like, cycle with the Eternal Witness. But it's still... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how... Definitely an option, though. I'll have to think about this for Soul Sisters. A lot of times I run Wrath of God type effects when the creature-based decks, like Merfolk, I think I'd have to justify, besides just Eldrazi-tron, I'd have to justify one more deck being in the top meta. And Death Shadow is just not one that I feel that threatened against. Again, with Soul Sisters, the only creature-based deck I lose to is Merfolk. And it's more like a 60-40 loss. So you win a lot of games. So Path would be pretty brutal here, but I'd still stabilize. And just gets back a Dusk Dawn. That seems like a really bad. Has to block with the Birds of Paradise here. So we have a Ghost Quarter, which is kind of cool. I think we will put out a Soul Warden. That gives us White Sun Zenith for lethal. If there isn't a block on the Auriok Champion. Assuming my opponent's going to do a double block. Birds has to block. Not going to expect a White Sun Zenith. This will be funny if my opponent does not block. Must be streaming too. I don't know what the pauses are for, so I'm assuming. I'm pretty sure this is what Craig Wesco. And this is lethal. That's what happens when you play bad cards. Shazam! There could be a Path to Exile still. Off the Birds of Paradise. But at that point, you think what would my opponent just... No, can't path off the Auriok Champion. Have to path off the Archangel. Gets a 2-2. No, it's my turn, so no 2-2. And my opponent would have done it before. Oh, no. There's still a pause here for the Path to Exile. I'd lose an Auriok Champion. Nope. That's game. And there we go. Finally lets damage go through. Alrighty. We'll go on to the next match. Okay, match number 3. We are on the draw. We'll go ahead and keep this hand. It's not the greatest. We're slow. But we have pretty good use of mana if we flood out, for sure, with the Whitestone Zenith and the Regal Caracal, the Archangel of Thune. Brimaz is pretty nice too, but we're pretty vulnerable to a Thoughtseizer Inquisition here. Yeah, this card, fun as it may be, I don't know. I don't know if go ahead and Windbrisk Heights. Hopefully we hit another huge payoff like a Caracal or a Thune. But pretty happy with how we've won 2 already. Yep, there's 2 Caracals. So I'm pretty happy with if we finish terrible from here on out. And this is going to be a very tough match. Another Whitestone Zenith, which actually is not bad against this match. We have Rest in Peace we can bring in. That's going to be our only saving grace. Yeah, but Living End is a tough matchup. The only Soul Sisters build which I'm successful against Living End is one that runs a lot of the Martyr, as you can force him to Living End very, very quickly. But the good news is with Brimaz, this will force out a Living End. My opponent just might do it right now. Yep. And theoretically, we can come back from this for a... it's going to be tough. Best card I could draw into right now would just be a lifelink cat. And that'd barely keep us alive. But that's Living End for you, how fast it is. Oh, we do draw it, so... yeah, that works out. We still do have to block both of them, though, as it's perfect lethal. Unless my opponent just hard casts a card, I don't know. Oh no, we're so dead. We have to block here. Oh no, I just blocked both of them. Yeah, we just needed some more 1-drops to throw out. And I do have to block the 2 big ones. And we have to hit a land here. We do hit the land. I mean, this is crazy that we come sort of back into it. I mean, this is going to be... but double cycling is a problem as well. And Shriekmaw just does it too. Yeah, Shriekmaw does just do it. Yep. All right, that is game. We'll go on to the sideboard. And again, this is a tough match. I guess if we get out some early cards and force off a Living End, it's just such a... This is going to be... Living End is so linear. They do the exact same thing every time. Rest in Peace are really the only cards that I'd want to bring in. Possibly Auriok Champion, just because if we do get them established after the fact. Whitestone Zenith isn't terrible, but it's probably the weak link. Either that or something like the Archangel of Thune. Yeah, I would say this is the weak link. Too bad this doesn't have Convoke. I'd actually be even okay with this card. Costing 1 more with Convoke? Maybe it'd be too broken at that point. Like a quad mana, quadruple white X Convoke type card. It's just really tough in this particular deck to really put a lot into it. All right, so we keep this because this is going to force off. And actually, do you know what? Maybe I go Brimaz. Maybe I just go past Brimaz. No, we have to establish the Soul Attendant, Ajani's Pridemate, I assume. Yeah, that's still the right play. And this will get that quick living end, and then we can follow up with Brimaz and Honor. And then the second living end will at least give us back a Pridemate and a Soul Attendant. So at least that's what I'm hoping for. But again, the only Soul Sisters, a lot of Martyrs actually do quite well because you can have a Martyr in the graveyard and then you get it back. And so I usually just play kind of the slower route versus them, establish like a Martyr and then a Serra Ascendant, and then they have to use a quick living end, and then you get back at least the Martyr to allow for like another Serra's Ascendant. At that point, get Rangers. And I've been successful that way. So we're just going to go Honor. And this is actually really good because then we'll have Windbrisk Heights active. This can put a Caracal underneath. And the Auriok Champion block one of these beasts. So, yeah, my opponent will have to use it this turn. Otherwise, it's lethal. And most likely after my attack phase, which will allow for me to get the Auriok Champion out. Ooh, do I risk a Simian Spirit Guide? Alright. Fulminator Mage is pretty decent, actually. We do have the Windbrisk Heights for my opponent to kill. Yeah, that's tough. That was the one card. And did have the Simian Spirit Guide anyway. Card needs to go! That's my pet peeve against, I guess not pet peeve, that's the one card that's really holding me back from going all in on Modern. I cannot stand this card. It allows for so many degenerate scenarios. Another Auriok Champion. Unfortunately, the Windbrisk Heights is going to bite the dust. It's the only non-basic in my deck that really suffers. So block here, sack, kill. And now the living end needs to come out this turn, and my opponent does have a lot of juicy cards. Yeah, he'll do it in response to attacking in. That was not a bad card, actually. Don't know if I can come back. The Auriok Champion, though, could. Beast Within. Okay, this changes things. Because now the Auriok Champions are getting really good. Plus, the Pridemate's going to come back. Another cycling, just desperately trying to find. And I got a Beast Within my Beast Within. Love to hit a land here. Perfect. Nope, there's the Violent Outburst. So we do get a Pridemate back. However, we get a champion and a champion. And we actually have lethal, because my opponent cannot block. Which, unless there's another beast within, we're in great shape. And it puts it kind of awkward for the beast within, because then we get an Auriok Champion in the graveyard. If my opponent wants to play this game. So I will block with the Pridemate, block here, and block here. That way, we, whatever reason, we don't get lethaled. This puts a Pridemate back in the graveyard, too. So it's just Beast Within, and my opponent's already blown one. Okay. Ew, yeah, Beast Within his own. All right, well, that had to go for it, I think. I don't think we can sit back and just... This does get in the graveyard. I don't know if that's relevant. I don't even know why I just gave him a target for the Windbrisk Heights. We'll throw Brimaz underneath. And go Brimaz of my own. Which does give me another blocker. But this is gonna be tough. That is a lot of aggro. Sideboard card you can put in versus living in, though, is going to be the Hallowed Moonlight. So is there any way I stop enough? So these are still the biggest. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think the only, yeah, 6 plus 8 is 14, so I just die, no matter how I block. All right, yep, that's a tough one. We'll go on to game number 4. Alrighty, match number 4. This is keepable. We have an Honor of the Pure and the Regal Caracal, as well as a Soul Warden. We'll start it off with the Flagstone Soul Warden. And next we have an Honor of the Pure. And eventually we'll get there. Uh-oh. The dreaded blue-white matchup. This is where we want the caverns. In this case, I think that we do want an Honor of the Pure still established. In there for 2 damage. And that way we have a sort of a threat established. Honor of the Pures are pretty good. Oh, might just be that humans list again. So we're doing quite well. Still have a spirit. Spirits. I have not seen a collected spirits in quite a while. This is a beautiful card to put underneath. An Archangel of Thune. And we'll put out a Sacred Cat. And not worry about attacking into a Selfless Spirit because I think my opponent would make that trade. So we do have to worry about Spell Quellers to a point. Gavany Township is something we can Ghost Quarters if I feel so inclined. This might not even be Spirits. I'm just going out on a limb. Bant Spirits was a deck that existed at one point. Again, I haven't seen it for months and months on MTGO. Sometimes it can be a little more tricky for Soul Sisters because the flying, just like that, I can't block. And so it can get in there for some damage. But it tends to gain me a lot of life. And then there's a perfect card with the Pridemate. And the Sacred Cat's also really good here. Because if my opponent does block, then yeah, no biggie. Plus we gain life. So we are in insanely good shape with the Archangel of Thune underneath. Without really any worries about, I mean, what in the main could they counter a creature spell? Well, they have the command sometimes, the Ojutai's command. Drogskull. This counters as an instant or sorcery. Yeah, okay, so we're in great shape. Yeah, my opponent's definitely not going to like this play. So we'll put out another cat just to pump up the Pridemate even more. Swing in. Wait till my opponent decides to block. And no blocks, and I believe this is way more than lethal. No, we're only getting one counter, so maybe not. I think we had 2 Soul Sisters out, but since we only have 1... Could be a Path to Exile for the Pridemate. But yep, there's... This goes 7, and that goes to 8, and then 6 is 14. But then we gain a lot of life. Gain 3 life. And yeah, so I don't think we need a Path to Exile, but it might be worthwhile for the Spell Quellers. I don't see us resolving White Sun Zenith or the White Sun Zenith doing anything. So here's the rare instance I'm going to bring in the Path to Exiles. I don't think we need the other Auriok Champions in. I think just the 2 and the Soul Sisters are enough. You could make the justification for running it over like the Sacred Cat, but I don't think that's necessary. Stony Silence there could be some random engineered explosives or the gain control of a creature type card, but I'd rather run Sundering Growth for the shackles. But we're getting quite lucky with a bunch of these creature-based decks, and maybe that's the way that Modern is kind of rotating into. The most success I ever had with Soul Sisters was when Delver was huge. The second time I had the most success with it is when Zoo and Burn were very, very big, and the deck did insanely well against that meta. There was a lot of Zoo, a lot of Jund, and a lot of like UWR, but they're heavy on the lightning bolts and the lightning helixes and whatnot. And this attrition based or anti-attrition based decks that Soul Sister with running Rangers and stuff with lack of counter spells in the old school UWR. I think they're only running Cryptic Command. Was actually quite good against that. So anyway, enough talk. I'm actually going to keep this because we have all 1-drops in a Plains, and this is something that the Spirits are going to have a hard time overcoming the amount of life gain. And there's a Noble Hierarch, which is not a spirit. It does ramp my opponent up. They do run Collected Company and, I believe, Chord. We draw a land anyway, so let's put out the one that doesn't require me to keep track of my triggers. Soul Warden, for whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain a life. So it's a forced ability, whereas Soul Attendant is not forced. That's what I was referring to there. My opponent missed a land drop. That is not good for my opponent. As now we get another Soul Warden. Gonna path it? Rattle Chains. Okay, that doesn't do anything. Just gives my opponent one less life, or gives me one less life. And this is where I love the Serra Ascendant. I am an attack in, because Rattle Chains is quite annoying. Yeah, I assumed my opponent would not block. So at this point, of course, would like to hit lands, but we have the mana for the Pridemate. We have the mana for everything else. Opponent kept a very, very greedy hand. And this does not even put a dent. I have overkill on the Soul Sisters, so I am going to offer the trade with the Wanderer. And if this was a Serra Ascendant, for example, right there, we would have our game-winning 6/6 out. But since it is not, yeah, I assumed at this point, though, trading 1 for 1 is probably right. The Wanderer, I guess somewhere down the road could become big off of all of the Anthem type effects. So Spellclaw mana up here. So not going to run Brimaz out until after I attack with the cats. And if my opponent wants to throw out the Spellclaw, then go for it. Regal Captain. All right, wasn't a Spellclaw. We lose 2 cats. Eventually, though, when we get to this Archangel of Thune, we are going to be in very good shape. But we get to throw some cats out regardless. And we have a lot of really good draws. Path is fine because it gets us closer to the Archangel of Thune. So I'm okay with it. I'm sure, yeah, just 1 comes attacks in. And we are at a whopping 43. It's going to take my opponent a long time to wheedle us down. So sure, we'll go with another one. Not too excited about another one, but again. I'm going to keep... I think I'm actually going to keep 1 in the graveyard. Oh, no. We're fine. They get huge. They all get plus a bazillion plus a bazillion. I'd rather have these out with the Archangel Thune. So now we're just waiting on like an Honor the Pure. I'm sure like another Rattle Chains is going to be a Selfless Spirits can be flickered in, which effectively gains me a ton of life. That was nice that a Path to Exile was used for the That's annoying for sure. 9 life per turn. So you can see how this can get out of control and Soul Sisters can't block. We have basically no dead draw next turn. And my opponent needs a path or this is over. You can see my army of 5/5s now. Ta-da! Pretty crazy. Can't even survive either. Yep, there's the concession. We did very well. Let's play one more for fun, finish off this league. Go on to the last match. Alrighty, bonus match, match number 5, since we're doing so well with the league. Ooh, this is a very, very risky hand. I think we're going to ship it back. It has triple honors, which is just overkill at this point. We have Windbrisk Heights, can't even get the Soul Warden out on time. I just do not like it. And this is much better-ish? I don't know. It's slow. It's clunky. We have a 2/3/5. Keep. My opponent also goes down to a 6. And I think I do want the Windbrisk. No, I think I'm going to bottom it. I think we have enough lands that statistically we're going to draw into another land on time for Archangel of Thune. Yes. So we're going to go with the Flagstones, pass turn. And we have an Honor of the Pure that can come out. See if we're up to... I'd love to see Burn. We haven't wrecked a Burn deck in this league. That's the only thing that's missing. Played against quite easy matchups, and then a tough living end match, which we don't have a sideboard for. Rest in Peace works. No Rest in Peace, though. Maybe a Moltel one. Again, it's probably about time to put Howled Moonlight back in the sideboard. There is enough decks, enough Coco decks even running around that's not a dead card against. There's enough Nahiri type decks. That's always a fun one. And this is going to hit probably the Brimaz, I would say. I don't think the Honor of the Pure is a threat. Could take the Archangel of Thune. So if this is Death Shadow, though, this should... Ooh, okay. That is interesting. Well, now we do have a 1-drop with the Soul Attendant, which isn't the greatest card versus Death Shadow. And again, I'm not even sure if that's what we're up against. So most likely, though, the Fetch Shock Thoughtseize is usually either Jund or Death Shadow. And Verdant Catacombs. So we've seen 2 green lands. There's a Bolt. All right, no Dark Confidant. Brimaz is going to come out here, which could be Abrupt Decayed. The White Sun Zenith is really, really slow. This could also get Fatal Pushed. All right, we are facing Jund. So Liliana would be tough here. I think Liliana would pretty much be backbreaking because the Archangel Thune wouldn't be able to come out on time. This is the match where Sacred Cats are really good. And there's a Fatal Push, and hopefully not a Bob. It's a Goyf. Yeah, Goyf is a lot easier for me to deal with than a Bob. Speak of the Devil, there's a Sacred Cat. Well, I need to hit that land. Land times 4. I'd be okay with hitting land. Archangel of Thune would be nice. There's Liliana. Liliana's weird. Discarding a card would be the right move. And at this point, I think I actually do just run out the Archangel of Thune because I can't race it. And that sucks, but yeah, Liliana's tough. Now my opponent's got to decide whether Goyf comes in or not. Alright, so at least we could attack down. Oh, I wanted to hit a land there. Missed all the land drops. Usually this is as a Soul Sister player, Jund is one of the matchups I do like to play against quite a bit, because most of the cards aren't very good. It's really about hitting the Dark Confidants and keeping up card advantage. But cards like Rangers are really, really good. Pulse is okay. We are now out of cards. And now I'd actually just would still like to hit land. It's actually a good one other than... Yeah, because it forces the Liliana to -2. And then I take some damage. Guess this allowed my opponent to have a card in hand, though. And Archangel. Which is pointless. I have to use one of these to block the Goyf, unfortunately. But did not hit a land at all. And what turn is this now? A bazillion, which is pretty crappy. Last turn to land would have been lovely. And then a Brimaz, of course. Huh. Must be another Liliana in hand. That's the only... Yep, so trips on the Liliana. Sacrifices, yep, and that is game. All right, so Auriok Champions are beautiful in this particular match. So are... It's kind of weird with the way they've got it built now. The Mark of Asylums are awkward. Leylines are very good in this matchup. So we're going to bring in the Leylines. We're going to bring in the Auriok Champions. I am going to bring in the one... Rest in Peace is pretty decent, to be honest with it. It shuts down Scavengers. It shuts down our Sacred Cats, though, if we bring in the Rest in Peace. But it shuts down Goyf, and it shuts down Kolgan's Command to a point. And it does take care of if there is any sort of Delirium strategy. So I'm not sold on bringing in... The Mark of Asylums are also quite weird, as they have ways to deal with them. I don't think we care about protecting anything for the Lightning Bolt, so I don't think Mark of Asylum needs to come in this particular. White Sun Zenith is, in all honesty, is still the card I'm going to go down to a 2 of. It's going to get caught in our hand too often. The Caracals are fine. The Honor the Pure is probably one of the weaker links. In fact, maybe all of the Honor the Pures. It gets us above like Golgari Charm if my opponent does bring in Golgari Charm or brings in anything else that, like, Anger of the Gods, the Caracal. Yeah, so Honor the Pure probably needs to stay in, just because I think my opponent will most likely bring in. So I think just Soul Wardens are weaker. I do want to keep at least a few White Sun Zeniths. Keepable hand, no Leyline, which is disappointing. But this is definitely a keepable hand. My opponent has to have a strong start, otherwise this can get out of control very quickly with the Pridemate. And we do have lands this time, so hitting into our higher drops is pretty good. But a Thoughtseize is actually pretty brutal here. Yeah, now the Pridemate goes away. One of these days I'm going to get a Leyline opening hand versus John. That's my goal in life. To have an opening hand Leyline. I usually run 2 in the sideboard Soul Sisters. It's been a long time since when I've sided them in to actually have them be relevant. And that was not a relevant card. And now we need to draw into every Regal Caracal known to man. It's by far the best card at this point. So is the White Sun Zenith. I probably will thin out with the Ghost Quarter. Confidant is brutal if it's a Confidant. Just a Collective Brutality. And yep. So Getting frustrated here, so let's just go ahead and thin out. Good news is we're pretty much good against Thoughtseizes here. There's the red, so a Bolt, a Liliana is just really, really tough. Really? I guess if my opponent has like real good threats in hand. And unfortunately, Liliana is going to get this game again. We needed that to be a Caracal. So here I will drop a Plains. Opponent also drops a... And there's the Goyf. And unfortunately... another land, but it doesn't matter. Well, yes, it does matter. So here comes our Archangel. This could kill off a Liliana. But I'm assuming my opponent has like his Pulse or something to take care of it. And Liliana already did the job. Yep. Skoos is good versus the deck. Really need to hit some high impact cards. Not lands. And these are all terrible. Need that Caracal. Really need that Caracal. Or a White Sun that we just put on the bottom. And the Scavengers is definitely going to get out of control here. Going to eat the Archangel of Thune. Way too many lands there. So we had the opposite effect of both games. Pretty lackluster for a bonus match, as Jun is going to show us. And that's the good thing about Jun though. Is if it gets the step on any deck, it can just flat out control the board at that point. But it's a matchup that I'll face all day, every day with Soul Sisters. As Liliana is quite terrible, and so are even cards like Inquisition and Thoughtseize, as eventually you can come back with Return of the Ranks and cards like that. Cards like Ranger. Even a Ranger on this board state wouldn't be bad. And Auriok Champion will not do it. It gives us a block. And there's a Caracal. And we get a ton of lands to the bottom. But I have to block the Ooze. And another Liliana, which is what I'm assuming. No Liliana. Okay, so we block the Skoos. And we have one draw to try to draw into... That's a tough one. A White Sun Zenith, and I cut all but one. White Sun Zenith would actually be pretty phenomenal here. Pridemate won't do it. Because White Sun Zenith would get four, and then we'd have to block with two of them, though. At that point, though, one of them dies from the Grim Lava Master, too. Even the White Sun Zenith at that point would be terrible. Well, Jun gets us there. Liliana both games. Very, very brutal. That was the flood. That was definitely a flood. But at least the little thought experiments paid for itself and a treasure. So I'm happy with that. And does well against creature-based decks. That's a plus side. But all in all, I'd still rather just go with Soul Sisters. The Regal Caracals were kind of cool. But it's something that I think that Spectral Procession, putting out 3/1/1s for 2 less mana is more viable. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this match or this gameplay. This has been Kevin with Gathering Magic. If you enjoy these type of things, come check out my own YouTube channel, YouTube/RogueDeckBuilder, where I try to go off the beaten path with my own homebrews. And hope you enjoy.